Lie to you. I'm not going to lie to you. I've been confused about the coverage of this story. Here's what we know. We absolutely know that a whole host of members of the Tasmanian workforce paid out of the state's pockets have been in dispute with the government over a pay deal. But it's not a pay deal. It's many, many, many pay negotiations that have been conducted concurrently between the state and its workers over the last months. Then yesterday, the Mandarin, a publication for public sector workers, reported that Tasmanian public servants had reached a new pay deal with the state government and that the CPSU members had voted up a new enterprise agreement. In other words, giving the thumbs up to a new pay deal. So what does that actually mean? Because we still understand that some workers are in, some workers are out. There are deals still to be done. Let's get some help explaining it, because for my understanding is almost 20,000 Tasmanian workers. This might mean you know what you're getting over the next 2-3 years. Natalie Jones, Assistant General Secretary of the CPSU in Tasmania. Natalie, good morning. What about I press the right microphone button, Natalie? That will improve things. Good morning to you. Thanks for coming in this morning. How many workers are affected by what we believe is a deal that's been done between unions and government over the last couple of days?
Yeah, that figure of around up to 20,000 is probably accurate. It is a little confusing because the workers that work for the Tasmanian government and in the Tasmanian public sector, they work across a range of departments, and even within those departments they might have coverage under different industrial or pay agreements. So often when we go into bargaining, we're bargaining for several agreements. So I think recently the CPSU were bargaining for about 10 wages agreements at the same time. But the public sector union wages agreement, the deal that's just been struck, that's really the big one that will deal with the bulk of workers that have been waiting on pay increases since December. Right.
So does it include nurses and teachers, for example, both of whom have been involved in some sort of industrial action?
Yeah, so from my understanding, the teachers are yet to, they're about to commence a voting period, so they're yet to give the okay to a deal. And the nurses are on, like correctional officers, they're on completely different timeframes for their agreements, so they flow afterwards as well. To make matters even more complicated, this time around, instead of accepting 3-year deals, which is the norm, some workers accepted 12-month deals, so education facility attendants in schools, for example. So now they're going to be on another timeline back in bargaining very soon. So we always have ongoing bargaining all over the place.
I feel like you're resolving the confusion for me, but by letting me know that it's complex, basically. So to be clear, my listener this morning, how will they know if they're one of the workers who look like they've accepted this new pay deal and something that will then flow through to their pay and potentially with back pay? How will they know if it's them?
Yeah, so this agreement that's been struck is for the bulk of the public sector workforce. So anyone that works across all of the departments except for police, nurses, doctors, teachers, so those with their own separate agreements.
Mornings around Tasmania. Natalie Jones is my guest this morning from the CPSU. Natalie, what's in the deal? Let's start with the easiest bits to understand. How much more pay will those workers get over years 1, 2 and 3 of this deal?
Yeah, sure. So look, the deal is a bit of a package. So starting with wages, it's a 3-year pay deal, but the wages are going to be received in a shorter period. So you actually receive the full 3-year package over 2 years and 9 months. So in year 1, there's the headline wage increase of 3%, same in year 2. 3%, year 3 is 2.75%. But these really aren't the real numbers. They're the headline increases. But what's actually going to be happening is money is going to be put into people's base salaries before those percentages are applied. So I guess what I'm saying is those numbers are boosted, and what they really look like is workers receiving 4 to 4.5% each year in years 1 and 2. And then in year 3, receiving your pay after 9 months, so 3 months earlier than you usually would.
How do workers feel about that? Your inflation might be sitting around there, but that's nothing like what your increase in fuel costs look like. Your health insurance costs would have gone up by about the higher amount that you've named just over the last 12 months. And there will be no council, I would imagine, in Tasmania that will come in lower than that when they talk about the rates costs that you'll be paying as a Tasmanian if you own a home. How are workers feeling about that outcome as a deal? Was that as good as it got?
Yeah, so we know from our ballot outcome that 93% of members voted up this deal, but we can't really look at that in isolation. We need to look at the context that we're bargaining in. So we know public sector job cuts on the horizon, perhaps a nasty budget for the public sector workforce. We've been bargaining now for close to a year. Members have taken action. We've had to fight against cuts to their general conditions, so losing things like the public holiday that we've just had, Easter Tuesday. So we've been campaigning and advocating for a long time now, and this is the package. I guess many members are feeling this is the best we're going to get in the context we're campaigning and negotiating in. And there's also, in addition to the wages, there's a conditions package as well, which sort of sweetens the deal.
Let's talk briefly about the conditions. There'll be no doubt many of them. The headline conditions, what significant changes are there, if any?
Yeah, I think significantly there's going to be a new leave category, reproductive leave, so 5 days reproductive leave for the first time for public sector workers.
What does that mean, reproductive leave?
Yeah, well, look, that's a good question, because while we've done a deal, the next step is drafting what this actually means. So what are the definitions, who can access it, and how that works. But from our understanding with the employer, it's a broad definition. It's 5 paid days to be able to do things that relate to your reproductive health.
So that might be things like, and I think lots of people would know the experience of having a colleague who's going through IVF. Would that include something like going to receive and be part of an IVF process?
Yes, absolutely. Anything to do with endometriosis. And even later in life, there are certain operations that men and women partake in that would be covered by these provisions as well.
Anything else to mention?
Increases in family violence leave by 5 days and paid to casuals, doubling of the carers leave component for working families. And as a new auntie, one that I found quite interesting is we're expanding what the definition of immediate family is. And this is important because if you're classed as immediate family, your rights to take personal leave to look after someone, or family violence leave or bereavement leave to attend a funeral, get expanded. So we're introducing aunties, uncles, nieces and nephews to that definition.
Did any members of the union, and I should mention that my guest this morning is Natalie Jones, Assistant General Secretary of the CPSU in Tasmania, did any unions reject outright, say no by majority to the deals that were put in front of them?
Yeah, I understand that there's still some work to be done with the Ambulance Tasmania deal. So that's with a different union has coverage of that one. And there's still a lot more work to do around the ongoing agreement. So we still need to negotiate Parks and Wildlife, child safety, and finalise our engineers agreement as well.
Appreciate you coming in this morning. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
That is the rep from the CPSU. Assistant General Secretary. Looks like a pay deal's been done. Still some details to be thrashed out, but taking in almost 20,000 of Tasmania's public servants. If you've got a reaction, get in touch, 1300 222 936. You're on Mornings Around Tasmania.
Join me, Kylie Baxter, on the Drive program for all the breaking news and trending stories. And we'll throw in a few curveballs to mix it up.
Drive with Kylie Baxter.
Back today from 4 p.m.
936 ABC Radio Hobart.
Leon with you this morning. Well, here's one we could follow up. Scott from Chigwell. Apparently, Department of State growth workers have been left in an information vacuum since when it's announced that the department would be abolished. Nobody knows which jobs are going to go or what arrangements actually are. What does sorry, Scott, I should have asked. Sorry, I'd say at the end you've said, what does the CPU have to say about this? Apologies. Didn't get to that question. But more clarity on what that looks like since it was announced.